There we go. So first slide we have here is I just wanted to briefly talk about our mission. You can read it for yourself on the screen there, but you'll see we've got conservation, education, and recreation bold, and that's on all of our trucks as you see them in the forest preserves, and that's the great way to break down what we've been doing for just about 100 years now. This is our first century. We plan to be around for a while, but June 8th in 1925 is when a group of citizens came together and actually formed the Forest Preserve. Preserve number 1 was Johnson's Mound, and we look forward to going back there in June this year, and hopefully people on here can look forward to celebrating that with us as well. But I'll go through 100 years here real quick. In 1925, we formed. At that time, the way that the Forest Preserve District received funding was solely through non-referendum bonding capability. So that authority that was given through the enabling legislation of the Forest Preserve District. So that meant we grew pretty slow. So from 1925 to 1938, there were only 4 forest preserves at just a few hundred acres. And we stayed that way for quite a while without an ability to grow. But this was the time of the Great Depression, and the country was going through a lot of other things. But Johnson's Mound, Bliss Forest Preserve, Bliss Woods, Tyler Creek, and Elburn are our four oldest forest preserves. So I just encourage anybody as they learn that to go visit those preserves and take a look at those shelters. You'll notice those were built in the 1930s by a wing of the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's very interesting history in there. But so from 1938 until 1999, we only grew to not quite 7,000 acres. So this was all based off of that non-referendum bonding. In 1999, under our first executive director, John Dewar, and President John Hoshite, the people were asked if they wanted to pass a bond referendum, which is different than what we're talking about tonight, but a bond referendum specifically to acquire more parcels. That passed well. And it was the first of 5 bond referenda that helped grow the Forest Preserve to what it is today. So by the end of 2005, we had grown to 12,500. The end of the 2007 referendum, we're approaching 19,000 acres. 2011, we topped 20,000 acres. And today we're just under 24,000 acres, which puts us on par with the other Collar counties, which are about 25,000 acres. So another way to look at that growth is presented in this slide here. So the green bar represents the same thing I was talking about, the increase in protected lands for the public in Kane County. And the orange line serves as a proxy for determining our ability to care for all those lands. It's to keep them open to the public and in a condition that you want to visit and have your family visit. And you can see that hasn't grown on pace with the land acquisition. We provide all that we do right now for just 1.5% of your property tax bill. I like to point out that I also live in Illinois and know that we have a lot of different public bodies vying for our tax dollar. But for us, we're less than 2% on the dollar that you spend at just 1.53% on average right now. So this is leading up to why a referendum now. I'll give you some financial background. Some people are really into this, some not so much. So we have some other information about why we think a referendum is appropriate right now. But the financial story is as such. All the monies that come to the Forest Preserve District are divided into the 11 funds presented before you. The 3 I've highlighted here are what we call our mission critical funds. So the mission we started this presentation with cannot be done without funds in these $3 in these 3 funds. So let me tell you a little bit more about these. This is a look at our general fund. So this is primarily the tax levy that comes to the Forest Preserve District. So you can see the big green chunk of pie here at 72% is taxes. The Forest Preserve District has other revenue sources. The big piece in rentals is primarily agricultural rentals. About 25% of the Forest Preserve District is in corn or soybeans right now. We do have some organic farming as well. But I bring that up, just not everybody knows that's as we acquire these new parcels from willing sellers, we use that agricultural as placeholder until we can have the dollars in place to actually restore that. So one fact that seems to hit home with people is that prairie seed costs about $2,000 per acre. So you can imagine with a 100-acre field, it's going to take us a while to save those dollars to get them restored. But our primary mission is to convert those into habitat. We also own 2 golf courses, Hughes Creek Golf Course, Settlers Hill Golf Course, as well as the stadium where the Kane County Cougars play, and where I'm talking to you from tonight, which is the Fox Valley Ice Arena in Geneva. So the next 2 funds, that's the general fund. So the next 2 critical funds is the capital fund. And this is what it's looked like over the last 7 years or so. So I mentioned in 2017, we had a referendum. That one brought in $10 million into this account while putting $40 million into land acquisition, or we typically call it land protection or land investment here. But the gold bar here in 2018 represents that infusion of money that the public approved, with a corresponding increase in that green bar, which is the fund balance of capital construction and development. So when you're thinking about these projects, think about large nature projects, opening up new preserves, and then doing some of the maintenance like we did down in Oakhurst, where we've got a boat launch and redid the parking lot. All of that comes out of this fund. So you can see the trend since the 7 years that have gone by. It goes down because it's an infusion from a bond referendum. The land acquisition picture shows you that trend even greater, as there's no additional infusion from any sort of levy. It's just what the public approved for land acquisition. And as we fill those coffers and we work with willing sellers, we buy primarily farms or other wooded areas. And where we're looking at 24 on the right side of your screen is, as I say, there's $0 million in there right now. So to continue our primary mission, that's why the question is being asked right now. So furthermore, why is it critical that there's no dollars in the land acquisition fund? This shows in orange here, these are acres that were purchased in Kane County with state or federal dollars. So as we have funds available in that land acquisition, we can leverage those on behalf of all the people to bring more money into Kane County and protect more nature for the public. And so you can see it's been pretty dramatic across Kane County. Almost 20% of what we have here is because we had, money in the kitty that we could then match those funds from state and federal dollars. We don't have that right now. So what that means is at least $1 million a year that we're not able to bring in because we don't have the match. But more typically, it's $2 million or even more in grants that we're typically able to bring. So the question that is on the ballot right now for those of you early voting is this. It's a big question. We'll break it down a little bit more here, but this is what it's going to look like on your ballot. If you're doing mail-in voting, you'll see it just like this. Some of the other polling places have a digital presentation, and it may be a little truncated, but this is what you're looking for. And it's got the detail in here that we'll go in further. But you can see the language in bold is what I'm talking to you about tonight, the detail on how the funds would be used on behalf of the public in the Forest Preserve District. So this, everything that we're talking about brings the property tax amount for next year up to 1.87 or 1.9. So when this was being crafted, it was really intentional to keep it beneath 2 cents on the dollar. So if you look at this slide, I know it's a little bit busy, but we want to show what the trend over time looks like. You might hear during this presentation that even if this referendum were to pass, your taxes are still going to go down. Here's why. If you look at the net decrease on the left side, you'll see 2024 taxes based on the average household of $300,000 in 2024 would be about $128. 3 years later, that's going down to 103. Here, the green line represents the referendum we're talking about tonight. The blue line represents debt that's being paid off from previous referendum. So Bond referendum, you can kind of think of it like a mortgage, in that it's got approximately a 20-year term, and there's payments due every year. As those are paid off, assuming they haven't been refinanced, which extends the term, then the Forest Preserve District no longer needs to spend money on those, and those savings are passed on in decreased taxes to you. Hopefully I covered that properly, but can definitely talk about that more if needed. Of the funds on the ballot right now, this is what the fund allocation looks like. So this is, in this example, it's at 5.7 million. That number, this will be the approximate of what's coming in here. It'll be based on the final values that come in from the county. But in broad strokes here, about $2.5 million goes into that land acquisition fund. So now we have that match to bring state and federal grants in. About $2.5 million goes into that construction and development fund, which allows those preserve improvement projects to continue. And I'm going to show you some specifics on that. And a portion of this goes to the operating fund, primarily to offset that agricultural revenue into move that agricultural revenue into a different fund so we can draw that down and create habitat. So that's about it for the financial section. I want to show you some more benefits that come to the county through this referendum. I've covered this pretty extensively already, but it gives us the ability to continue to protect land through direct acquisition through willing sellers. One of our big goals is to get these places open to the people. These are public lands here for everybody to enjoy. So we want to do some basic amenities that allow people to get into their preserves and see the nature that they voted to protect. In this example, we're all the way up at, we're up in Rutland Township. I don't know if anybody watching is in Rutland Township. So at the north part, on the map on the right side, you can see Rutland Bog. Rutland Bog is the only intact bog in Kane County. We're about at the southern extent of where those occur naturally, but the ones that were here prior were mined out for peat. That's a PEAT. It's a valuable commodity. This one was not. It's intact. It was identified by botanists as one of the last best places in Kane County. And because of the 2017 referendum, we were able to protect it. So the pictures on the left are endangered species. Again, about 20% of the plants you run into up there are considered endangered or threatened. That's extremely rare occurrence that quality of natural resource would still exist, but it's here and it's protected in perpetuity because of what we do. And you can see on the map that we want to get the public right up to that, and with a scenic overlook. That would take capital to get that done. And on the east side of that map, or on the right side, you can see another pond that's already stocked with fish. We want to get that fishing amenity out for people to enjoy. And so we'd also do a picnic shelter and restrooms like we do in so many other forest preserves. This is one I'm extremely excited about. This is in Plato Township, right in the center of the county, where we've done the biggest and best wetland restoration we've ever done. And so this, we'd like to get people to be able to see this one as well. So it's multi-tiered, but you can see the base level is ADA accessible, meaning we can get a wheelchair up there so we can maximize the amount of people who can utilize this. We would have an accessible trail coming up to this as well. So this is the type of passive amenity that I think the Forest Preserve District is really known for. It's just come out, it's quiet, you can experience the tranquility of nature at your own pace, and I would love to see this built. In this picture, you'll see some birds on the left there. Those are endangered whooping cranes. That picture was taken at the site this last year, and I think a lot of the people on here know, but they are critically endangered. As I've been saying, there's only 700 in the world, 500 of them who still migrate on their historic paths, and 3 of them who visited Kane County last year, 8 months after this restoration project began. So we want to shout that from the rooftops and show people the type of cutting edge restoration that's occurring in our county. As I've detailed with some of the agricultural retirement funds, that allows us to make more habitat. So right now we make habitat at roughly 115 acres per year. That's new habitat that wasn't in the county at the beginning of the year through prairie restoration, wetland restoration, and some woodland restoration. We'd increase that rate to about, over 350 acres sustainably the way that these funds are allocated. So pollinator benefits, just getting out and recreating, and diverse natural area benefits, they soar. This is one that we've been working hard to bring over. You might recognize these animals. Some people call them buffalo, some people call them bison. We'd like to get them on prairie up at Burlington Forest Preserve. The fence is already built. We've got a second phase construction plan for this spring. And we're just working on a management agreement with some of our not-for-profit friends, primarily the Nature Conservancy, where we could transfer some bison over, which have provenance tied all the way back to the last 4,000 animals that were remaining in the Great Plains states during that 1850 removal of the bison. So very exciting. We're getting very close to bringing this one. These referendum dollars would allow us to expand this to like a 350-acre project. We only have 35 acres fenced right now for about 10 animals to start their recovery. Then we're also highlighting a project over in Elburn, one of those first forest preserves I was talking about that we're calling the Grand Trillium Woodland Project. Those of you who live in Geneva may have seen similar work that occurred in Fabian Forest Preserve last year, but it's kind of our bread and butter natural areas work where we remove invasive species and highlight the quality that remains. This was identified as one of the first forest preserves primarily because of this stand of Trillium grandiflorum. These white trillium don't occur in many places across the county, and they have a very big display in Elburn, and we'd like to help improve that whole area. But as I mentioned, some of our core projects, we have recreation. I showed you 2 projects like that. Conservation, just showed you a couple exciting ones. I also want to talk about our environmental education focus. So we want to get kids out in nature, maybe off some of those digital devices, get their hands dirty and start to see what the natural world is all about. But we're going to be doing that through brick and mortar projects. We don't have a lot of nature centers in Kane County compared to some of our other counties. We only have the one at Leroy Oaks, and it's a great one, but we'd like to bring amenities both north and south to augment that centrally located nature center. So this first one is images from Red Oak Nature Center that Fox Valley Park District manages in North Aurora. What we like about this is building something similar that has a 3-season feel that really brings nature in. And we're looking at about a 150-seat amphitheater that would be usable by the public for public events, but also by our naturalist team to do all manner of programming throughout the year. In Aurora, we're specifically trying to reach that community. There's not a lot of land to purchase or protect there anymore, but we still want to bring services to folks in Aurora. And so we're looking at actually doing a urban ecology field station. So this is a rendering of what that might look like at Arlene Shoemaker. Donnelly Elementary School is right there. We already partner with them with a lot of nature-led hikes. And so we're looking for an amenity that we might be able to utilize with their teaching staff and our naturalist staff to bring kids into nature, kind of a home base to go from there. We'd also, I don't know if everybody knows, but we have a public safety department comprised of 5 full-time sworn officers, and then those are augmented by part-time officers from local police departments. And their primary work is twofold. They're protecting the resource, but also protecting people enjoying all these resources. So we want to make sure that they're still able to do what they can so everybody continues to feel safe visiting the forest preserves. And then I just kind of close up with some of our bigger tangible items that we deliver on a daily basis. We plant a lot of trees. We're kind of known for it. Those clean the air. So more forests equal cleaner air. We filter the water in the beautiful Fox Valley before it goes there. So we increase the water quality. And hopefully I've proven through some of these projects how we improve the quality of life, but I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Okay, Ben, thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Sure.
Looks like we have so far one question queued up. Dan?
Yes, so the first one that came in kind of goes back to what Shauna Wyatt said. But maybe Brooke, you want to tackle this one? It says, what exactly do you mean when you say ultimate tax cap? The Forest Preserve District doesn't pay taxes on the land it owns.
Well, Shauna said it, so maybe she should answer it.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy to, but Shauna, go ahead.
Okay, so the thing about the Forest Preserve doesn't pay taxes on the land, you're correct. But what it also doesn't do is it doesn't create the need for very expensive and intensive services and infrastructure. So say you have 50 acres that a farmer has decided to stop farming. The next likely use of that land is going to be a subdivision. And a subdivision needs roads and sewers and schools and libraries and a much heavier concentration of police and fire. And so, you know, I keep going back to the middle class pays one way or the other. And that property ends up on the tax bill one way or the other. But they might not be generating taxes, but they also aren't consuming taxes if it's in the Forest Preserve. So you have they're not intangible, but you have the clean water, the clean air, the recreational opportunities. All those things are very tangible, and we all need clean water and clean air. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to pay for this land one way or another. If a farmer has decided that he's not going to farm that land anymore, then it's going to go to some sort of a suburban use, because we are still in the collar counties. And, you know, you saw the school takes 68% of your tax dollar and the Forest Preserve takes 2 cents. And so that's what I mean by the ultimate tax cap. And once you do it, it's done. And it's not gonna ever create a school or kids or curb and gutter. I mean, you know, whatever you have in roadways, you need twice that in curb and sewer, and it adds up.
And that comes from a realtor.
And a former municipal employee who watched how much we spent on all of that stuff every year.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that most residential development doesn't pay for itself.
So, yeah, no residential development.
So the ultimate tax cap, the ultimate tax cap means that it's usually cheaper for the taxpayers to preserve it and put it in a forest preserve than to have it developed.
Absolutely. Residential real estate does not pay for itself.
Yeah. Never has.
No, if you want to look at it, see what people's taxes are like in Champaign County out in the middle of nowhere compared to in the suburbs. We have services, we have uses, and we pay taxes on them.
Thank you, Shauna.
Very good.
Thanks for asking. It's my favorite subject.
There you go. Just a reminder, if anybody has any more questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. There was another question that came in. If you're looking for revenue, have you thought about charging a small admission fee for preserves?
There's no plans to do that. I think that's one that's come up, not at the board or anything lately, because people are already paying for these forest preserves. So there's a strong desire to not have that. One thing we are looking at is we're building an archery range. So some of the preliminary work on that is happening right now. That sort of thing may have a permit fee just to offset that kind of cost, but not looking at a fee like state parks and other places.
Very good. Someone else asked, how many Forest Preserve employees are there today, and how many additional will be hired, assuming the referendum passes?
Yeah, so right now there's 83 full-time employees. The amount of employees we have swells in the summer with seasonal employees, but so there's no set limit. It's not a very large amount. One of the things with public safety, we've been looking at the feasibility of an additional full-time officer. but maybe through the duration of this, we'd be talking about 10 employees might be possible, but the primary use is all preserve improvement, and to continue to be able to protect land through acquisition.
Very good. And the last one that I have is, where is the next preserve that you will open?
Oh, that's a great question. So the Rutland Bog site, that's not conceptual. That was already drafted. We were looking to seek funding. So some of the two of the main grants, I didn't spell them out, but one is called Land and Water Conservation Fund. That's about $925,000 a year, and then OSLAD, the Open Space Land Access Development, is I think about half that. And so that's a development grant versus land acquisition grant. So we're looking to get match in the construction and development fund so we can go for an OSLAB development grant. Hope if this were to pass as soon as next year for Rutland Bog, which would get that open. So that's the next in the queue for totally new open preserve.
Very good. Thanks, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Thanks for the questions.
some people have been asking me about the types of land that the Forest Preserve District is interested in buying. Obviously, you can't get specific, but
Sure.
could you just give sort of general, you know, are you looking to open up some or create some new forest preserves, add on to existing, connect long rivers and streams? Give people a sense of sort of what you're thinking.
So the land acquisition strategy since 2017 has intentionally been to grow existing forest preserves. So if you think of a site like Dick Young Forest Preserve in Batavia, we've been able to add hundreds of acres without an additional cost of access because it's already contiguous. The amenities are already there. We just mow another trail as that's restored. So that has been a really cost-effective way to increase the size. It also has the benefit of bigger natural areas support more wildlife. So we achieve our natural resource goals by growing out those nodes. And like we're referencing, we kind of got this, it is totally a cores and corridor model. So we get as big of a natural area as the community supports, natural and ecologic and economic. And then we seek ways to connect those in a changing world, less predictable climate. North-south connectivity helps make it so both not just animals, but plants can move over time across those so we can maintain these natural areas. So that's the core and corridor model is the acquisition strategy in a nutshell.
Very good. And another question came in on some of the literature for the referendum. It says that the district is transparent regarding funding. Can you describe how it's transparent?
Sure. Yeah, we've got a good history of being transparent. We have a number of different documents available at kaneforest.com where you can see our annual auditing. I think we're on our 12th year in excellence in financial reporting, which has a big transparency component to receive that award. So we put that up. We're audited annually. You can see how these funds are being spent. The budget is posted typically in June of every year, so you can see the expenses that are coming up for the next year. But we're big on transparency and making that available through the World Wide Web.
And if someone wanted to know how exactly the new money is being spent, do you have some kind of reports or something on that?
No, great question. Well, one of the reports available right now is our 2017 progress report based on our 2017 referendum. So kind of a promises made, promises kept document. We did a similar thing in the last referendum, so people know exactly where these, if there's new preserves, if there's new capital projects or new developments, where those occurred. And then people are always open to reach out to us if there's any further questions after this, if they want to talk to the Forest Preserve. You can just call our main line. We'll get back to you and make recommendations. We're looking to update our master plan, which is online right now, goes through 2025, but we're looking for input for the next 10 years as well.
Ben, back to the cost. So, it's $10 for every $100,000 of what the assessor says the market value is of a person's home. Is that correct?
That's correct. So if you, we've been using the average home price is $300,000 in Kane County. So it's pretty easy math. That equates to about $30 per year. If somebody's trying to calculate exactly what that means for them, take a look at your tax bill. And if it's the assessed value, you'll multiply that by 3. That's what your assessed value is, and you can figure out the math from there. But the cash value on there, some of those, I was just looking at that before this presentation. We'll have the total already on there for you, and you can calculate what our 1.87% is for your house.
And
Good.
yeah, that's about $3 or so dollars.
Yes.
About $3 or $4, depending on the value of your home.
So Ben, can you
Gotcha.
talk about your volunteer program a little bit? How many volunteers does the district have and what do they do?
So great question. We have, I think we have just under 800 registered volunteers right now, meaning they're active. We have a wide variety of volunteer opportunities. Coming up in natural resources, I'm the most familiar with our natural resource volunteers. Some come out, you know, once a month and assist our stewards who are have more responsibility. So we have stewards at many of our forest preserves who can host those work days and augment the staff. So we have our forest preserve district in Kane, that 83 people, we're the leanest collar county. If you look at Lake and DuPage, they're about 285, 300 staff respectively. Now they have volunteer corps as well, but ours really do a lot and help expand that. So through natural areas work, but we also have our mounted rangers who are equestrian mounted rangers, snowmobile safety team who's out there. We have Fabian Windmill in Geneva. We have a dedicated group of windmillers out there and many more. I'm sure I'm forgetting, but strong volunteer corps that really leverages people's love for the land.
Thank you. I see Shauna Wyatt has a question. Shauna?
Yeah, it's not so much a question as I wanted to go back to the question about transparency and kind of tag onto that. I have a couple of letters to the editors that are hopefully going to get printed. And I talk about the stewardship, the Forest Preserve's financial stewardship. And I wanted to touch on the point Ben made about paying off those bonds. They have the ability to actually refinance those bonds. And a lot of times when people refi bonds, they don't just do it for the rate, they do it so that they can extend the payment period. And the fact that they just went ahead and paid them like they said they would, and are able to tell us where the money went and how we're using it is extremely transparent, I feel like, from a taxpayer standpoint.
I agree wholly.
Yep.
Yep.
Very good.
We have
So
any
from
other
the-
questions?
From the past referenda, Ben, how much of those referenda dollars went to fund salaries?
$0 from past referenda. So this question is the first time it's been asked in this way since the creation of the Forest Preserve District. So those previous referenda, none of that went to operations, and this is still a very limited amount of that. So we've really had those dollars go into land acquisition and capital projects, opening the preserves up to the public.
Can I say, I heard a comment or a concern on Nextdoor site that people said they live near a forest preserve and it isn't getting trimmed the way they would like to see it and what have you. And I think there is an element of, you know, we've had good luck with people wanting to acquire land, but people also want land that they do live near to be maintained. And
Yes.
That is a feature of this referendum, is that, you know, we are able to bring a little more manpower to the process.
Indeed. You know, I'll just put a plug. We have a program called Kane County Notify that people, if there's an issue, they can get right to Forest Preserve staff, and we can help them with overhanging branches, that kind of thing.
Dan, any other questions coming in, or panelists? Do you have any questions for Ben before we move on?
Another question came in. How does the Forest Preserve District protect wildlife and endangered species?
Yep, that's one of our bread and butter projects. So we have 7 departments in the Forest Preserve District, one of which is our Natural Resource Management, or NRM team. Within the NRM team, we have 2 wildlife staff. So we have our wildlife biologist and a wildlife technician. They are primaries for along with the Director of Natural Resources for protecting endangered species. Blanding's turtles are probably our biggest success story, as they're a prairie turtle here in Kane County and Chicagoland. We've got a strong hold. We were doing a lot of habitat for rusty patch bumblebee. We're able to get grants. So we're talking about grants a lot tonight based on those endangered species. And so we're able to directly create habitat for them. We do a whole, we serve the whole suite of life in the forest preserves, but typically what endangered species need are more conservative or higher standards. So if we can keep those animals in the preserves, then we're taking care of the whole food web.
And you mentioned this before, but this referendum will help you have the money to match grants, federal and state grants, both?
Yes. Yep. No, that's specifically it. So without getting too in the weeds on it, the way grants work is that they're reimbursable. So say you get a $1 million grant, Forest Preserve District needs to do a $2 million project and then get that grant match back. And each grant's different. Sometimes it's a 1-for-1. So we do $1 million project, get $1 million back, that sort of thing. But you can see why we need to have the money to spend it so we can then get the grant to pay ourselves back.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a question about whooping cranes?
Yeah, maybe building off the endangered species. Yeah, that's exactly that's why I like to highlight that project in that was meant when you make that wetland restoration, you're really just setting the table for all of our native fauna to come back. And that one in particular wasn't a whooping crane project, but it's definitely, if you build it, they'll come kind of scenario. And so when the conditions are right, you never quite know when you're going to pass that tipping point to have something amazing show back up. So we're starting to see badgers come back in the county. Actually, one of these sites we just acquired, our newest, well, not to give too much away, but one of our newest sites, we found a family of badgers in there. And so our wildlife biologists put cameras out there and start studying them. But there's maybe only 2 to 5 in the county at a time. And so some of these bigger animals, what they call mesocarnivores, because they're medium, they're in between size. We're finding out there's many more of them than we knew before, just because of well, I think, Brooke, you asked about corridors, and that's one of the main ways that these animals are able to move as we put those linkages back in. So, yep, we know a thing or two about endangered habitat creation.
Dan, anything else you see?
The last one I see is on your website, on Forest Preserve's website, there's something called a Distinguished Agency Award that you were given, I guess. What does that mean?
All right, sorry, just so that's given from the IPD, or IPRA rather, Illinois Parks and Recreation Association. So it distinguishes, it started as a Park District Award. We're the first, and I think we're still the only Forest Preserve District to have been awarded that. And it has to do with standards. So like when we were talking about transparency, it's a higher level standard to make sure that we have policies and procedures that are in place that keep us a professional organization. So we take it as a little point of pride. That's why we put it on our website. Because we're the only one to have it. And then so it was a process. It was a long process to go through that to make sure we had that sort of standard. But once it's in place, we've been able to maintain it for 3 or 4 years now. So it's something we're hoping to maintain. But thanks for asking.
Great.
Oh, congratulations. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So Dan, if there aren't any other questions, we can, move on, or do you see
That's
any other
it.
questions?
That's all I got.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you all for those questions. Ben, Lori, everybody, thank you for joining us. We're going to